Good afternoon and welcome to James Franklin's weekly press conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll go to Rich Scarcella from the Reading Eagle.
All right, like always, appreciate everybody coming to cover Penn State football. Appreciate that. Kind of summarize the Illinois game like I do each week. You know, when you talk about the key statistics, the turnover battle, we won that 3 turnovers to 0. Our defense did a great job of creating turnovers. Our offense did a really good job of protecting the football. Really should have had 4 turnovers in the game. Penalties is an area we have to get better. Have not been strong in that area. Drive start battle, we won that. The sack battle, we won that. I think the big things that probably jump out to me in general, I thought we competed our tails off for 60 minutes and 9 overtimes. I thought special teams did a really good job with field position. The biggest issue in my mind is we did not capitalize on the turnovers. We had 3 points off of 3 turnovers. That was probably the biggest factor, in the game, in my opinion. So moving on to Ohio State. Obviously got tremendous respect for their program and Coach Day and what they've been able to do there. Not just since Ryan's been there, but really before that, obviously. They've done a really good job. Obviously Ryan's very involved in the offense with Kevin Wilson. Kevin's got the title, but obviously Ryan's very involved in the offense, and they are as explosive as any offense in the country right now. The quarterback, C.J. Stroud, is playing with tremendous confidence. He's getting better every single week. Obviously, he's surrounded with a bunch of explosive players, and Travion Henderson, I think, has really changed him since his role has grown in the offense. Obviously, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith, Najigba, are all receivers that can catch the short pass and take it the distance, or have the ability to beat you over the top from the beginning. So very, very explosive. Obviously, defensively, they made a change with Coach Barnes taking over as the play caller. And I think has done a really good job of playing sound, smart defense and allowing their players to play fast and aggressive. Been impressed with Cody Simon, Haskell Garrett, Denzel Burke, and Ronnie Hickman. So guys that are making big plays for them. And then on special teams, it's very similar to what they've been doing for as long as I can remember. Very consistent philosophy on special teams with Parker Fleming. Obviously, Garrett Wilson and Emeka also make an impact there as well. So obviously, tremendous challenge going on the road to the big house. We got to get healthy, and we got to go and play smart. And obviously, we're going to have to limit explosive plays. And we have to find a way to score some points, because obviously this team has the ability to put points on the board. So tremendous challenge based on yesterday and the amount of guys we had in the building watching tape. I think we'll have a great practice today. So open up the questions.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then we'll go to Greg Pickle.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Great, thanks. James, there was a report last night that you are changing agents, and I was wondering if that is true. And if it is, do you think changing agents in the middle of the season could be a distraction?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked, Rich. First of all, as you know, my response, I'm completely focused on our season and our team, and finding a way to beat Ohio State and be 1-0 this week. Now, I'm not going to get into the details, Rich, but what I will tell you is that this is being reported now, but this is something that happened over the summer. Obviously, I didn't make an announcement. I don't know anybody that ever does when that happens, but this is something that happened over the summer that's just being reported now, to answer your question.
Greg Pickle, Blue Wade Illustrated, and then Mark Brennan.
Good afternoon, James. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing well, thanks. When you went back and watched the film, how did you evaluate what Sean was able to do, and how close is either Taquan or Christian to being a guy that gives you the best chance to win, whether it's at Ohio State or wherever, if Sean is limited in some of the ways we talked about after the game on Saturday?
Well, I think the good thing is, as you know, last week we weren't sure. We were trying to kind of see where he was going to be at. Sean's much further ahead now to being back to 100%. So that's a positive. We feel really good about that. I know Sean felt great physically, on Sunday. And Taekwon and Vayu have obviously, with Sean's reps being limited last week, they've gotten a lot of opportunity, so that's been helpful. But obviously it's very different what you do in practice and in a game. So those guys continue to develop, continue to grow, are getting better. Obviously Christian hasn't been here as long and has gotten a lot more reps, so that's been helpful in his evaluation. But both of those guys, obviously we're going to need with Sean's situation, and also just the way college football is in our game in general. So, we expect to have a 100% Sean Clifford this weekend, and those other two guys continue to develop.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247, then Donnie Collins.
Thanks for your time, James.
Just
following up on Greg's question, you've talked a lot about how important Sean's ability to run is to what he can do overall. Was he unable to run last week, or was he told not to run to protect himself? And how much do you think that impacted him in what he was doing and the offense? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that's a big part of Sean and what his game is, his ability to extend plays, his ability to keep the defense honest and be able to make a play or two throughout the game where he picks up a first down with his legs. He was limited, obviously, in what he could do, and we tried to limit it as much as we could as well. Obviously that was the challenge when you got a guy like Sean, and that's a big part of what he does and how he plays. That being limited obviously impacted him and us.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, then Corey Geiger.
How you doing, James?
Hey, Donnie.
Did Taekwon get enough reps last week to have been able to play and succeed if he was needed to? And how difficult a tightrope is it for a guy who ultimately has to make that decision when you have a banged up quarterback who needs reps to show he can do it, and a backup quarterback who needs reps in practice to kind of get the system down?
Yeah, that's always the challenge, right? How many reps does the 2 get? How many reps does the 3 get? And then when you're trying to figure out is the guy going to be available? And Sean's played enough football here, no different than a few years back with Trace. Trace had played enough football, here to really kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. And I feel like Sean has kind of been in the same situation. Played a lot of football here, has done some really good things. So, we were going to give him the benefit of the doubt based on what he had done in practice and what he's done over his career.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then Ben Jones.
Hi, James.
Hey, Corey.
You coach 118 to 22-year-old young men, James. You've always been consistent with your 1-0 message. But, James, is it realistic to think that none of them would be distracted by all this noise going on about your future? I know you don't want them to be distracted, but is it realistic to think that they wouldn't be, some of them?
Yeah, again, I think that's fair, Corey. It has not been a discussion or an issue that I've heard from the staff or I've heard from the players. I've met with the leadership council. We've kept it, very direct. And obviously, there's things that, that we have discussions in great detail, in our building with our family and the players and the staff. So we try to do that the best we possibly can. I think we've done a pretty good job of that over my 8 years here. And we'll continue to try to do that. There's things that we can control and there's things that we can't, from the outside. But this has been kind of a story that's happened on numerous occasions. And we just try to keep it as focused as we possibly can. But I think it's a fair question and I understand where it's coming from, Corey.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, and then Mike Gross.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, Ben.
Eric Barron is going to be done soon, and Sandy's contract is up. She hasn't said whether she's going to retire, whether she wants it to be renewed or not. How long down the road do you look at Penn State's future when it comes to the people that are ostensibly your peers in the administration?
Yeah, I think that's, again, I think that's a fair question. Obviously, we're trying to be focused on Illinois and talking about Illinois as much as we possibly can. And Ben, you and really a lot of the local guys that have covered this for a long time, there's been a lot of, unusual situations. The timing of when I came to Penn State, I took the job here not knowing who the president or the AD was going to be. They were both interim at the time, which is very unusual. And then obviously when you have a president who's retiring, like Eric's actually his birthday today. I sent him a message this morning wishing him happy birthday. Eric's done an unbelievable job. We all came in at a challenging time in Penn State's history and have worked very well together and have battled together. But yeah, I think obviously you want to have an idea of what the future is going to hold, and I got tremendous faith in our board and our board leader and Matt Schuyler that we're going to get somebody great. But Eric's going to be difficult to replace. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but I got tremendous faith, in our leadership on the board. I got tremendous faith, in our leadership that's currently on campus now too.
Mike Gross, LNP News, and then Audrey Snyder.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Thanks. What have you, from watching film and talking to your staff, whatever you do, what have you figured out about why it was such a struggle to stop the run on Saturday?
Yeah, a couple things. Obviously, they gave us a formation that we had not seen on tape and made some adjustments to it. What I would say, Mike, is at the end of the day, we held them to 10 points. We've been a little bit of a bend but don't break defense all year long. We've been really good at stopping the run. We did have challenges there. Obviously, just like we're dealing with Sean on offense, we've had some injuries on defense. So some guys' rep counts have gone up. But we've done a really good job of stopping the run, not only this year, but historically. So, they had a nice little wrinkle that caused us some challenges. There's no doubt about it. We were able to make some adjustments as the game went on. Obviously, we've had some thorough discussions since. Some things that obviously you look back after the fact and say, we'd like to have done this or could have done this. But again, at the end of the day, in college football, we held them to 10 points, and that should have been enough to win the game.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic, then Allie Berube.
Hey, James, you just mentioned Eric Aaron and kind of your confidence and your faith in them getting that right. Are you committed to being the head coach here beyond this season?
Yeah, obviously I've been asked this question multiple times, and my focus is completely on Illinois and this team and this program. I think I've shown over my 8 years my commitment to this university and this community, and that's kind of my statement.
Allie Berube, ABC 27, then John Sauber.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Hey, Allie, good. How are you?
A few weeks ago when we were talking about the 5-0 start, you mentioned that sometimes praise can be just as dangerous as criticism for players and their mentality. Where do you think the team is at now that there's a couple losses and they're trying to kind of find their way here? How do you stop kind of like the roller coaster that maybe some of these?
Well, I think that's where, obviously our Lash building and our practice fields, that's a place where our guys come and it's a family and we're very supportive of one another and compete like crazy. I think that's the thing that we have to do a great job is when our guys come into the building, that's kind of their place. Kind of a second home, and because there's a lot of noise out there. There always is. This is college football. When things are going well, everybody's patting you on the back. When you have a loss, there's challenges that come with that, and there's criticism that comes with that. I thought we had a really good practice and meetings on Sunday and discussed those things in detail. And I think our guys have responded well. Obviously, we got a tremendous challenge, to go on the road. against Ohio State to go against one of the most explosive teams in the country. But we've been in these types of battles before, and I know our guys will respond well, and so will our staff.
John Sauber, Center Daily Times, then Adam Rittenberg.
Hey, James. For the last 5 years, you guys have followed your first loss with an immediate loss after it. Is there something to that? I know you have your 1-0 mantra, but it seems like these losses are bleeding into the next week when it's the first one of the season.
Yeah, again, I think that's a fair question. We talk a lot about resiliency and being able to bounce back as soon as you possibly can. That's where the 1-0 mantra is so important, because I think guys, a lot of times, their approach and their mentality, especially in the college football playoff era, these things can get magnified. Wins can get magnified. Losses can get magnified. So keeping our guys as focused as we possibly can, and that's challenging. Obviously, and it's even more important when you play a really challenging schedule like we do on our side of the conference, and the out of conference games that we play makes it even more challenging. So that mentality and that approach of 1-0 is really important to help you get through situations like you're describing, John.
Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, then Joe Giuliano.
Okay. As you study the run game from the Illinois game and just the rest of the season, what are some of the themes that are emerging in terms of getting that particular element of your offense on track here?
Yep. Yeah, we got to be more physical up front. I think that's really important. We got to get vertical push with the O-line and the tight ends. I love those guys. I know where their heart is. I know where their mentality is. I know what their approach is like. And I know having some lengthy discussions with Coach Troutwine about that as well. Now it's translating it to the practice field, and it's translating it to the games. We got to create more push and play to the echo of the whistle. And be physical and create space. And then our running backs have got to be decisive and get downhill. And then we got to keep people honest with our perimeter throwing game, so people can't overload the box, whether it's perimeter throwing game or whether it is the RPO type stuff, to put people in conflict. So, obviously that's an area that we have got to get better at, Adam, and I understand the question.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer, then Daniel Gallen.
Hi, James.
Hey, Joe.
The offense has had its share of adversity the last two games, with Sean going out in the Iowa game and then coming back at less than 100%. Is your offense adjusting to the adversity of that? Do you feel well enough in the last game and a half?
I want to make sure I understand what you're asking, Joe. What do you mean well enough?
Well, I guess you go into like the Iowa game with the game plan, then Sean gets hurt. Was there enough of an adjustment there to have a chance to win? And the same last week with Sean not being 100%. Is there a way you have to adjust a little bit to allow for that adversity?
Yep, that I understand the question. So I think last week, specifically against Illinois, I mean, obviously what you'd like to do, right, is run the ball to take some of the pressure off whoever the quarterback is. And when you're not doing that effectively, then it creates, the challenge. It goes back on the quarterback's lap. And that's really who we had been the first 5 games of the year. We'd, been making plays in the passing game, mixing the run in to keep people honest. But obviously when you have a shift and you have a change, or you have some injuries and you have to rely more on other things, then that becomes challenging, especially when you're not running the ball the way you need to. So I think that was the plan, Joe, this past week, was to run the ball a little bit more and take some of that pressure, but we weren't able to do it effectively enough to really be able to dictate the terms of the game.
Daniel Gallen, Penn Live, and then Brandon Marcello.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Daniel. How are you?
You mentioned Matt Barnes taking over as the play caller for the Ohio State defense earlier. How have you kind of seen that Ohio State defense, I guess, find its footing or change over the past couple weeks?
Well, I think the thing that everybody knows, obviously this isn't something I'm stating here that everybody isn't already aware of, but Ohio State's done a tremendous job of recruiting. They're as talented as any team in the country, year in and year out, especially up front, what they've been able to do with the defensive line and really throughout. So I think what they're doing a really good job of is getting back to playing base defense, keeping it sound. I don't want to use the term simple because I wouldn't say it's necessarily simple, but they're sound. They're not trying to do too much. They're not trying to over scheme you. They're letting their players line up and be safe, and they're always sound in how they adjust. And they're allowing their players to play fast and aggressive and make plays. And I think he's done a really good job of kind of creating that as their identity. And, it's showed up on tape, and they're getting better each week. As you know, they've played really good defense at Ohio State for a long time and have been talented, and they're back to playing that way again.
Brandon Marcello, 247 Sports, and then Nate Bauer.
Hey, James. Kind of a big picture question.
Hey, Brandon.
Kind of a big picture question for you about Jahan Dotson. I know it's almost seems like you just get used to his spectacular plays and almost get spoiled by it. But when you look at just the improvements he's made from last year to this season, and now some consider him the best in the country, how would you kind of, encapsulate his career and what he's meant to Penn State and what he means for you just this season too?
Yeah, I'm really proud of Jahan and how he's developed really in every area. Academically, the type of family he's got and how supportive they've been of him and us. I got a very close relationship with both mom and dad. As a football player, he's really come in here and gotten more technical when it comes to his releases. He's gotten stronger. He's always had the ability to catch the ball. He's probably got as good a natural ball skills as I've been around, and that's been the case really since his freshman year. He makes really difficult catches look easy. But he's gotten bigger and stronger, which has helped him in the running game and his blocking. It has helped him in his release work. It's helped him in his contested catches. And I still see him kind of growing in that area as well. But he's really kind of committed to the whole plan. He's able to beat you, vertically. He's able to beat you in short games. He understands zone coverage. He's got a really good football IQ and understands zone coverages and where to sit. He understands how all the nuances to man coverage and how to get open and how to separate. And he's made so many big plays for us, and I've always been a big believer as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator. When you have guys like that, you get the ball in their hands as many times as you can, and I'm constantly tracking that targets and touches per game to make sure that that's happening. So obviously when you got a healthy quarterback, it makes it a little bit easier. But I'm really proud of him. I'm really happy for him. He deserves all the success that he's having.
Nate Bauer, Blue 8 Illustrated, then Bob Flounders.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, Nate. How are you?
Hey, I think you made a change with Juice and Miranda during the game on Saturday. I was wondering if that's something that you think will stick moving forward, and if there's been an impact, if you feel there's been an impact of Salim Wormley's absence so far this year.
Yeah, so with Salim, coming into training camp and kind of through training camp before he got injured, he had worked himself into a starting role for us. So when we lost him, obviously, whenever you lose a starter, that's significant. And then obviously, Juice playing center. There's going to be some games and some times where certain matchups we may feel are better, where Juice may make more sense at center and Mike at guard, or vice versa. So that's something we'll continue to look at. We also think it's important to obviously to have somebody else that's snapped in games. So we'll work that this week, kind of both of them, and see what's going to make the most sense, whether it's Mike at guard or Mike at center, and Juice obviously, is the complementary piece to that. So we'll continue to evaluate that. We're looking for as many things as we can to improve in that area, specifically when it comes to the running game. And when I say that area, I'm talking with the offensive line.
Bob Flounders, Penn Live, then Max Ralph.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Good, Bob.
James, could you assess your defensive end depth going into the Ohio State game? It looks like you're really just leaning on three guys, in Arnold and Nick and Jesse. I know that I think Smith plays a little bit, but is there a concern that maybe they're starting to wear down a little bit, or are you happy with the way you're kind of giving them snaps throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, as you guys know, obviously losing Adisa Isaac before the season, again, whenever you lose a starter like that, it has an impact. That there's a lot of guys that we're mentioning like that. So obviously whenever you lose a starter, it has an impact, and the next guy needs to step up, and there's going to be more, there's going to be more reps that are asked of guys that were in backup roles before that. So Zariah Fisher's development is going to continue to be important for us. And Smith Vilbert, who is playing, we hope his rep count will continue to grow as he gains confidence and experience. But I think you're right. We'd like to have. We have typically been 5 deep at D tackle, and we've typically been 5 deep at defensive end. And that has not been the case, this year with injuries, especially when you lose, multiple starters, like we talked about with PJ Mustipher and Adisa Isaac, like we've already talked about. So when that happens, obviously other guys need to step up, and their reps need to increase, and their experience and their confidence needs to grow as the season goes on. So that will be important for us.
Max Ralph, Daily Collegian, then John Petishnock.
James, thanks for your time. You mentioned earlier the conversations you've had with the Leadership Council. What have those been like early in this week and following the consecutive losses? How is, even early in this week, how have you seen your team respond to that in their mentality?
Yeah, I haven't had any Leadership Council meetings this week. Typically those will happen on Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe before practice or after practice, but those haven't happened at this stage. Obviously, Monday is their day off. Sunday is kind of for me to get a sense of kind of where we're at from a health perspective, and then obviously from a mentality perspective as well. And I was pleased with Sunday. So Monday was important, and from all the reports that I got from Jahan and the guys, there was a bunch of guys in watching tape, and we look at Mondays as kind of culture days where they're coming in on their own, doing what they have to do. But again, it's been good, and I understand. I get it. We've lost 2 games, I think, by a total of 5 points, and had a chance to win both of those games. And I've been in this business long enough. I get it. I understand. I know how passionate our people are. There's nobody that's more passionate than the coaches in our Lash building and the players in our locker room. So, we're going to put a great week of work together, find a way to get better, and find a way to go 1-0. And that's really how we've been doing it for as long as I can remember, and we'll continue to do it that way.
Last 2 questions, John Petishnock, Football Letter, and then David Eckert.
Hey, good afternoon, James. Appreciate your time today.
Hey, John, you too.
With having a 1-0 mentality, do you believe there are certain weeks when going 1-0 has more of an impact on the team and the season? And if so, does this week qualify?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the way we approach it is 1 week at a time, and try to cut it up into small, tasks that I think are attainable and I think are easy to focus on and concentrate, rather than looking at the whole season. And even in some ways, even what happens this weekend, just focus on today to be the best we possibly can. But I'd make the argument that last week was just as big as this week. The week before that was just as big. Whether you win a game, in a challenging situation on the road, or whether you have some adversity to overcome, a game that you didn't win. Those are challenging, and those are important. So to me, every week is really important. Obviously, going on the road against an Ohio State team that's thought of as well as they are on offense, defense, and special teams. Obviously, I understand what your question is, but I think they're all important.
David Eckert, Blue White Illustrated is our last question.
Thanks for your time today. Just wondering if you can evaluate some of the defensive tackles who kind of stepped up PJ on Saturday and what you thought of how they did in your first full game without him.
Yeah, I think, Keziah Izzard, obviously he went from a backup role to a starting role as a redshirt freshman, and thought he battled. Obviously, Derek Cangelo was already starting, but now his rep count increased dramatically. And I thought those two guys battled. And now, like we talked about, having 5 guys that we can rotate in there, whether it's Amin Vanover and Devon Elise, who's played a lot of football for us again this year, more of a rotational backup role. And now, we're kind of looking at Devon and Keziah as both, guys that are rotating in that other starting defensive tackle position. And then Amin Vanover is a guy that, is working in and getting some reps too. So whether it's Fred Hansard or Fator Mamoba, we're going to need that depth moving forward with the rest of the season that we have. And again, that's how we've done it, and that's how we've done it, since I've been here, has had a rotation of 5 guys, and we're going to need to find that sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Recording
Thank you.
stopped.
For the